So, see, last time we discussed about these two examples, that is capacitor when it is in series and when it will be in parallel with the source and load. Okay. We will not again going on to waste our time with the same example. We'll switch to the next part, that is how the equivalent of that capacitors are to be determined when they are connected in series or in parallel. Only the important thing I want to again just revise or highlight it over here, that is the reactance offered by capacitor. It is 1 upon 2 pi Hc, and the second point, which is most important, the capacitor reactance, it is dependent on the input signal frequency, right? As we will going on to change the signal frequency of the applied to that RC combination or to the capacitor, the reactance offered by that capacitor, it will be dependent on that signal frequency, and it is reciprocal of 2 pi Hc, that is 1 upon 2 pi Hc is in that 1 upon 2 pi Hc, it is the applied input signal frequency, and the C, it is the capacitance offered by that capacitor, right? Now remember, you might be already familiar with these two equivalents when the capacitors are connected in series. I taken here example of 4 capacitors connected in series. So when they are connected in series, their equivalent, that is C equivalent, equals to C1 into C2 into C3 into C4 and divided by the addition of capacitances of all the capacitors, that is C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4. It is different as compared to, or if we compare it with the resistors, right? And when they are connected in parallel, then the C equivalent, it is simply the addition of capacitances of all that capacitors. Here I shown one instrument, that is for the measurement of equivalent capacitance offered by that either series or parallel capacitors, and that is LCR-Q meter. I think one subject is there in your syllabus that is related to the instruments and their operation or working. So LCR-Q meter, it is used mostly to find out the inductance or capacitance or the combination, that is reactances of various components when they are connected either in series or in parallel or series plus parallel. Okay. So this is the LCR-Q meter. Just remember, whenever you will study in detail in that subject, you will get clear idea about this instrument, right? So the applications of capacitor, it is basically used as a reservoir, or we can say for the energy storage purpose. Polarized capacitors are mostly used in case of various DC power supplies. You might be somewhat familiar with the rectifier circuit. In that, a filter is used, that is a capacitor which is kept in parallel to the output of that rectifier, or in parallel with the load resistance to or for smoothing that pulsating DC into pure DC, right? And various voltage multiplier circuits are also there. So these polarized capacitors are mostly used for the energy storage purpose. Additional uses it includes, that is related to non-polarized capacitor, as a power conditioning, or conditioning means to remove the noise if it is there. Basically noise, it is nothing but the signal which have the different frequency and amplitude as compared to fundamental signal. For example, if there is a AC signal of 230 volt, our main supply 230 volt RMS with 50 hertz, if there is some noise, we can say that noise will have somewhat different frequency like 100 hertz or greater than that of. So such type of noise is also known as a we can say harmonics, which are introduced in that power lines. So to remove such type of high frequency signals, mostly the non-polarized capacitors are used in parallel to that supply line, so that the high frequency signal, it gets filter out, that means it gets neutralized, and the obtained output, that is the pure 230 volt RMS signal. Then signal coupling purpose. So this application you might have learned in BJT amplifier at the input and output side, or the input signal. It is basically applied through input coupling capacitor. One example we already taken while studying the simulation software. In that BJT amplifier, we taken two capacitors at the input and output side, and that capacitors are used for the coupling purpose as well as we can say the DC blocking purpose, right? And already I told about that electronic noise filtering, etc. That noise is nothing but just like a we can say that harmonics or somewhat high frequency signals which differ from the fundamental. So in summary, you might have understood about the capacitor, what is exactly the capacitor, then its various types, then how the capacitance is to be determined of that capacitor by various methods, if numbers are given or if color band is given, or in case of that polyester capacitor, already we discussed how to determine their capacitances, then the various materials used like ceramic and all that, then voltage handling capacity also. Then today just we discuss about how the series and parallel equivalents uh, are to be used to determine the equivalent of that combination, then various applications of capacitor. So thank you very much with this capacitor topic, and now we will switch to the next topic, that is inductors, right? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
We will just wind up these prerequisites somewhat fastly as compared to previous our lectures, because we have to switch as early as possible towards the semiconductor, and I have to give somewhat more time to the field effect transistor, which was included in your first year syllabus, but I think that was not yet covered due to this pandemic situation. So we'll discuss somewhat more on then that topic, as well as the semiconductor diode and all that, which will be more useful to you. That's why. Now we'll see the next component, that is inductor, and the objective of this presentation is again what is inductor, then inductor type, how the inductance of that inductor is to be determined, then material used, again series and parallel equivalence of inductor and various applications. So first of all, what is inductor? Remember, inductor simply it is nothing but a coil which is wounded on the, we can say that insulating materials, right? It may be somewhat like that plastic bobbins, or it may be a air core inductor. No media is there within that various or within that coil. So the coil it is wounded, or that inductor it may be available with somewhat that non-conductive material, or we can say the air core inductor. Okay. Ratings of that inductor, it is mostly it is in microhenry or millihenry. Now what is that inductor? Inductor, it passes the DC and blocks AC signal. So see, it is again somewhat different than that of capacitor. In case of capacitor, what we discussed, or what we summarize over there, the capacitor it blocks the DC and passes AC. In case of inductor, generally we are saying it passes DC and blocks the AC signal. Okay, and mostly these inductors are used again as a filter. You might have studied again that LC filter or pi filter in that rectifier circuit. Again, it is used to somewhat smoothing purpose of the pulsating DC signals. That is nothing but filter. And in tune amplifiers, so you might have heard about this amplifier, that is tune amplifier, or you might have using it. See, you all people nowadays use that FM, radio Mirchi and all that, 98.3. So that 98.3 megahertz, that is the tuning frequency of that amplifier, which is available in our mobile handset. And whenever we are tuning it properly or exactly at 98.3 mega, then and then we are getting the proper audio, right? If that frequency by mistake it is set at 98.2 or 98.4, then there is so much noise, is it? You might have seen these things. So that is nothing but the tune amplifier. So the inductors are used in that tune amplifiers. Again, it may be fixed type of inductor or it may be variable type of inductor. Right? That variable type of inductor, it is mostly known as IFT, that is intermediate frequency transformer. That is the variable type of inductor. Then color coding, again it is somewhat same, or even if that standard available inductor, it somewhat looks like a resistor. That color coding is also same as that of resistor, but only the difference while determining the inductance of that inductor, that we have to take the multiplier 10 raised to minus 6 compulsory, right? In case of capacitor, what we discussed, that multiplier, compulsory multiplier was 10 raised to minus 12, that is pico, is it? In case of inductor, multiplier compulsory, that is micro, that is 10 raised to minus 6. Okay. Then the reactance offered by the inductor to the applied signal, that is denoted again XL. Remember, this device, it is also frequency dependent, same as that of capacitor. But here, the reactance offered by that capacitor is determined as 2 pi FL. In case of capacitor, it was 1 upon 2 pi FC. But in case of inductor, remember the reactance offered by that inductor, that is nothing but again we can say the resistance offered by that inductor for the flow of current. It is known as a reactance, that is denoted by XL and is determined as 2 pi FL. So by this formula again, you can conclude here the reactance offered by that capacitor is directly proportional to F. While in case of capacitor, what we discussed, it was inversely proportional. When frequency increases, Xc gets decreased. Reactance offered by capacitor gets decreased. But in case of inductor, what is going to happen? Whenever frequency will get increased, the reactance offered by that capacitor also will get increased. Now see, here in the second point, I mentioned it passes DC and blocks AC signal. So just recall or just I think that example I might have taken in the next slide. Here we will try to conclude it. If the inductor is connected in series with the somewhat signal source, AC signal source is there and somewhat load as RL. Just imagine it, right? So if I increase the input signal frequency or the frequency of that applied input signal, then what will be going to happen? As the inductor we are considering in series, its reactance it will go on increasing because XL it is really proportional to F. Is it? L, that is the inductance of that inductor, it will remain constant. It will not going on to change. Only the reactance offered by that inductor it will going on to change according to the change in input signal frequency, right? So if the input signal is a DC signal, consider the same example as that of capacitor, which we discussed in our previous lecture. If the inductor is connected in series and the applied input signal is DC in nature, so how much will be the reactance offered by this capacitor? This inductor, it will be of 0 ohm, right now, because the input signal we are considering as a DC signal. That means it has the frequency of 0 hertz, right? And that's why XL is equals to 2 pi into 0 into L. Whatever may be the value of inductance of that inductor, the reactance offered it will be of 0. Okay. Right? So see here, already I mentioned just for DC signal that is having 0 hertz frequency, inductor offers ideally 0 reactance, that is acting as a closed circuit, that is it passes the DC signal through it. Is it? That is the meaning. Okay. While for AC signal, if the reactance is finite, just a minute. See, while for AC signal, reactance is finite and the value depends on frequency of the applied input signal. Already I told, whenever we will go on to increase the frequency, the reactance offered by that inductor, it also will go on increasing, right? Again, one more thing, this is somewhat most important, which you have to remember. When signal passes through the inductor, it stores the energy. That means, similar to that of capacitor, capacitor also stores the energy whenever we are applying the signal to it. So it stores energy, and when applied signal gets stopped or the current flowing from the signal source, it becomes 0 through the inductor. You have to remember the stored energy polarity, it gets reversed, and and it gets retained by the inductor. That means the energy stored by the inductor, it gets retained, but the polarity it gets reversed whenever the current flowing through that inductor gets stopped or it becomes zero, right? This is the most important thing in applications. Whenever it will be there, again I will go on to explain or will try to explain in detail. Now the various types of inductor available in the market, you might have seen such type of devices. All are the inductors. Only the thing I want to highlight over here, the device where I am moving that cursor, it looks somewhat like a transformer. Is it visible to all? Which I am highlighting by my cursor. Is it visible? So it looks like somewhat a transformer. So such type of devices, mostly you are calling it as a transformer, but this is not a transformer, remember. It looks like somewhat transformer, but only there are two terminals. In case of transformer, there are two windings, primary and secondary. So more than two terminals are there. If it is simple transformer, then two terminals for primary and two terminals for secondary. If it is center tap transformer, then two terminals for primary and three terminals to the secondary. So in this case, whatever I shown here, only the two wires are there. That means it is a single coil, and single coil is nothing but an inductor. See, in this figure also, the wire is wounded, copper enamel wire, it is wounded on that somewhat non-conductive material or insulator, and it is mostly a ferrite core material, right? And there are two terminals. Now the total length of that wounded wire as well as gauge of that wire, copper wire, and its resistance, all that thing will be able to decide inductance offered by this coil, and same lot of remaining also. So all the shown diagrams are here for inductor. This is somewhat very small type of inductor, mostly preferred for the PCB. Okay, and this is the standard available inductor, which looks like a resistor, and how its resistance is to be determined. That thing also we will go on to discuss in the next slide. So see, you might have seen again such type of device in our lab. Inductors are available in our lab, which looks like somewhat resistors like our CFR or MFR. How the inductance of such type of inductor is to be determined. The example I taken, that color coding, color chart, it is again same as that of capacitor or resistor. So the first one is the red color, then purple or white we can call, and then brown, and last one that is for tolerance, which is black. Right. So see here, the inductance of such type of inductor is to be determined. First color and its assigned number, that is 2, take it as it is. Then wallet, its assigned number is 7. So I written here 27 into same method of resistor, write down the 10 and its power, that is the number assigned to the third color band, right? It is brown, and for brown the assigned number is 1. That's why I written here 10 raised to 1 into, already I told, this 10 raised to minus 6, it is compulsory. You have to write this calculated number, okay, and the unit is Henry. So when you will just rearrange all these terms, you will have the value of this inductor as 270 microhenry, and with the tolerance of 0%. As for black, the assigned number is 0. That means the tolerance offered by the device, it will be of 0%. Is it clear? Now series and parallel equivalent. It is exactly same method of resistor. See, if you can recall our that previous lecture regarding that resistor and its equivalents, series parallel equivalents, you might be understood about how that equivalence is to be determined in case of inductor. It is same as that of resistor. That means when inductors are connected in series, I shown again 4 inductors here, L1, L2, L3, L4 connected in series, and its L equivalent or total, it is simply the addition of inductances of all inductors, L1 plus L2 plus L3 plus L4. And it is measured by using that LCRQ meter. Okay. And when the inductors are in parallel, then their parallel equivalent is to be determined same as that of resistor, that is L1 to L2 into L3 into L4 divided by addition of inductance of all inductors. Correct? So in summary, I taken somewhat fastly this topic because it is just you can just correlate it with the capacitor as well as resistor, and it will be somewhat now simple for the understand also. So what is inductor? You might have understood. Then the various types, series parallel equivalents, and various applications of that inductor. Mostly inductors and capacitors are mostly used for filtration purpose, as well as one of the extra application of inductor. It is nothing but for the tune amplifier that already we discussed. So I think you might have understood again this topic also. So thank you very much, and we'll switch to the next our prerequisite, and that is nothing but PN junction. So before going to this PN junction, is it okay to all, or if you have any doubt, you can ask immediately. I will wait for a minute, and then we'll switch to the next topic. So is it okay? You can either
Yes, sir.
or going somewhat fast. Yes, it is somewhat fast, but the reference is the our previous topics related to that capacitor and resistor, and that's why I taken it somewhat fastly. Okay. So shall we go for the next topic, that is PN junction? Are you okay for the next topic?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll switch to our most important topic, and that is PN junction. Now we'll give a sufficient time to this semiconductor and PN junction. So the objective of this topic is what is semiconductor, then what is mean by doping, various types, then what is PN junction, what is PN junction diode, then diode biasing, VI characteristic, and diode currents. So already you people are familiar with this, but just I want to take the review, and that's why we'll complete this topic first. What is mean by semiconductor? That name itself indicates its conductivity. It is semi. Conductivity semi means what? It is not acting as a good insulator. Insulator offers the infinite resistance. That means its conductivity is zero. Right now, while again for semiconductor, it is not a good conductor also. Just like we can say the best example is copper. Copper offers the minimum resistance, and hence generally we are saying the copper have the maximum conductivity, right? As the resistance offered is minimum. But again, one more material is there, that is gold, which offers a very good conductivity as compared to copper material, but due to its cost, it is not affordable to prepare the wires, or we can say connectors, by using the gold, is it? So the conductivity of semiconductor, it lies in between insulator and the conductor. Is it okay? And as per the periodic table which you studied, I think in chemistry, so the silicon, that is denoted by Si, and germanium, Ge, are the materials which are known as a semiconductor materials. Now remember one thing, when these two materials, that is silicon and germanium, when are available in their pure form, they act as a what? You people are already studying this semiconductor, I think from school level, right now. So whenever silicon or germanium are available in their pure form, they are acting as, options are insulator, then second option conductor, third option semiconductor, and last one none of these. What do you think? When silicon and germanium are available in their pure form, I am expecting answer from your side. Anyone can answer. Just unmute yourself and give the answer. Don't write in that chat box.
Sir, semiconductor.
Pure form, in pure form, just like a sand. Okay, silicon, the best example is sand. We are extracting that uh, silicon from that silica, right now. So sand is a conductor or insulator or semiconductor. Remember, it is a insulator. So these materials, when are available in their pure form, they are acting as the insulator. And whenever we are adding few external impurities or metal impurities, we can say, then its conductivity gets increased. Then they do not remain as a pure insulator, right? So in their pure form, these semiconductor materials are known as the intrinsic semiconductor. Remember, okay? While after adding the external impurity means what? The other materials or metals, like from, we can say, having their that either trivalent or pentavalent, right now. So by adding the trivalent or pentavalent material with this intrinsic semiconductor, which is known as a doping, then this semiconductor becomes or known as extrinsic semiconductor. So remember these two words, intrinsic and extrinsic. So you will remember here, see, extrinsic means somewhat externally added with this semiconductor, right? So whenever doping is done, that means whenever either trivalent or pentavalent impurities are added with this pure semiconductor, they becomes impure. Impure is nothing but extrinsic, and pure is nothing but intrinsic. Okay. So whenever external is added, it is known as extrinsic. This is the trick to remember about extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic means with externally added impurity. Okay. Now, when that external impurity is of trivalent, an example I given here like boron, aluminum, gallium, and indium. When it added, the form pure semiconductor is known as a p-type. Okay, that means in such type of semiconductor material, holes, that is positive charge carriers, will be the majority, or maximum charge carriers available will be the positive charge carriers. Now remember, don't say in case of p-type semiconductor there are no electrons. A very small number of electrons are also available after that the adding of that trivalent impurity or doping with trivalent impurity. Whatever semiconductor gets formed from its pure, that is intrinsic, to impure, that is p-type of semiconductor. So remember, p-type and n-type semiconductor generally, which we are calling, are the extrinsic semiconductors, or we can call them as impure semiconductors. Okay. So in p-type semiconductor, the maximum charge carriers available are the positive charge carriers, and a very small amount of negative charge carriers are also there, which are known as a minorities. That's why I written here, in p-type semiconductor, holes are the majority charge carriers, while minorities are electrons. And same as that of, if the external impurity added is of pentavalent, then for example like phosphorus, arsenic, and antimony, if such type of pentavalent impurities are added with the intrinsic semiconductor, that is in their pure form, the form semiconductor or impure semiconductor is known as n-type semiconductor. N-type means in such type of form semiconductor, electrons will be the majority. That means the number of that charge carriers available will be the electrons. That's why written here, electrons are the majority charge carriers, while minorities will be holes. Again, same as that of previously discussed, that is p-type semiconductor. Okay. So see, whatever the diagram I shown here, I tried to show the majority as well as minority charge carriers. Is it visible to all? See, the LHS side is of p-type semiconductor, binding that trivalent, and RHS side, it is of A-type semiconductor. So in p-type semiconductor, a number of positive charge carriers is shown, and a very few number of electrons also I try to show over here. Okay? As compared to the positive charge carrier, that minus sign is nothing but electrons, are very less, and that's why that in p-type semiconductor we are calling that positive charge carrier as majority charge carrier and the negative sign shown charge carrier as a minority. Okay. Similarly, in n-type, the majority are electrons. Number of that negative sign charge carrier, that is electrons, are the majority, and holes will be the minority. So very few number of holes I try to show here. Is it? So the holes are minority now in case of n-type semiconductor, and electrons will be the majority charge carrier. Is it clear or any doubt? I think all these things you already studied, already I told from your school level. So no need to discuss again more on than that, on this topic. So we'll go ahead. So remember, whenever we try to join these two materials, just consider one p-type of slab is there, a piece of p-type of semiconductor is there, and another one is n-type. Whenever we will going on to join these two, at the joining there will be a junction. Is it? See, I tried to show it by a thick line between type and n-type. A thick line shown, that is nothing but a p-n junction, right? So remember, during the formation of this p-n junction or during the manufacturing of this p-n junction, two charge carriers gets recombined by themselves, and this process is very fast, and we can't stop that process also. Okay, so that is known as a self recombination. So whenever we are joining the p-type semiconductor with n-type semiconductor, the closer charge carrier, closer opposite charge carrier gets very fastly recombined with each other and leave back the stationary or we can say immobile charge carriers, which I try to show it by circles. Is it? So see what is happening exactly during the formation of this p-n junction, holes from p-type semiconductor, they get migrate towards the electrons, or electrons get attracted to the holes and it's recombined. So whenever they get recombined, at the edge of that p-n junction, a stationary positive charge carrier gets accumulated, just shown over here. Is it? Similarly, electrons or holes attract electrons from n-type semiconductor, or electrons gets migrate from n-type to p-type and gets recombined with the holes available or closer to that junction. Is it? And again, a stationary negative charge carrier gets accumulated. So whatever the charge carriers I tried to show by the circles are known as the immobile charge carriers. Immobile means what? They are stationary charge carriers, and just if you observe, they are just acting as a wall around the p-n junction. Is it okay? As they are immobile, as well as they have the we can say feature or property, they do not allow the remaining charge carrier to get self recombined. So remaining charge carriers from n side as well as from p side, majority charge carriers, are also trying to get recombined with the opposite one. But already a wall gets formed by the stationary charge carriers. They do not allow that remaining charge carriers to enter towards the opposite side. Is it okay? So the region where I shown the stationary charge carriers or immobile charge carriers around p-n junction is known as a depletion region. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of that depletion? Depletion means what? Somewhat lack of. So in that region, there is a lack of what? Mobile charge carriers. Whatever charge carriers are available, all that are stationary, immobile. And that's why this region is known as a depletion region. Okay. Now, just already I told that accumulated stationary charge carriers are acting as a wall, a brick wall. A wall is formed or built just by using a multiple bricks, right now. So such type of wall gets formed around that p-n junction, and that's why this wall will have somewhat its own strength, right? So just imagine a wall, if we try to break it manually or by ourselves, if two people came together and tried to break that wall without any hammer or anything, So will it be possible? No, because that wall have, a brick wall will have its own strength. But if we try to break it by somewhat machineries, just like you might be familiar with JCB machine, is it? So if we try to break it by that JCB, then it will get easily break, is it? Because the strength offered by that wall will be somewhat less than that of applied by the we can say that machine, JCB machine, is it? But the strength applied by ourselves, 2 to 3 people combinedly, that will not be possible to break that wall. So similar to that of brick wall, here in our electronics, a wall gets formed around that PN junction, and this wall have its own strength. Okay. So how much is the strength of this wall? Can anybody answer me? Are you getting? You all, are you getting what I'm teaching to you? Can you understood the
Yes, sir.
example, but whatever
Yes, sir.
I'm giving to you? Okay. So the question is, how much is the strength of this wall? The strength of this wall is in terms of our electronics or in terms of volts. The strength of this wall is either 0.7 volt or 0.3 volts. Remember this one, right? So that depends on which type of material is used to form these semiconductor, that is P as well as N type semiconductor. If these two semiconductors are formed by using a silicon material, we already discussed about the two examples. Two examples are there, that is silicon and germanium. So if it is manufactured by using a silicon material, then the strength offered by this wall or this depletion region combinedly is equals to 0.7 volts. And if these two semiconductors are manufactured by using a germanium material, then the strength offered by this depletion region is of zero point 0.3 volts. So for silicon material, it will be 0.7, and for germanium, it will be 0.3. Just remember this. Okay. And the strength, that is either 0.7 or 0.3, which depends on the material used, either silicon or germanium respectively, is known as a barrier potential. See again, what is the meaning? No need to remember anything over here. See, barrier means what? Obstacle, right now. Barrier means it is just acting as an obstacle. So this depletion region or that stationary charge carriers accumulated around that PN junction are acting as a wall, are acting as a barrier to whom? To the remaining charge carriers to get recombined, or to the remaining charge carriers which are available in the remaining region of that P and N type semiconductor to get migrate from one terminal to another terminal. Okay, so this depletion region, it is acting as a barrier, it is acting as a wall, and the potential or the strength, in another way we can say, offered by this depletion region is known as a barrier potential, and that barrier potential is either 0.7 or 0.3, that depends on the material used, either silicon or germanium respectively. Is it clear now? For external connection, if we want to use this device, that means we have to apply somewhat external signals to it or external connections. The two terminals are taken out. The terminal related to or taken out from the P-type semiconductor is known as the anode terminal, and the another one which is taken out from the N-type semiconductor, it is known as a cathode terminal. Okay. So one thing I written here, the ohmic contact. Hello, do you have any problem? See, I shown here one thing, I written it as a ohmic contact, somewhat half circle, is it? So, do you know what is mean by this ohmic contact? Are you familiar with this one? Why it is written as ohmic contact, or what is mean by that ohmic contact? Remaining is the terminal, metal terminal for the external connection. Ohmic contact is there. Then there is a semiconductor from both sides. Over here, LX side, there is a P-type semiconductor. It is joined with the somewhat metal terminal. Okay. Similar, this N-type semiconductor, it is joined with metal terminal through this ohmic contact. That's why I'm asking, are you familiar with this term? What is mean by ohmic contact? If no, during our next lecture, first of all, I will explain what mean by that ohmic contact. Okay. So our time is over. So we have to stop here, and during from the next lecture we will start from this what is mean by that ohmic contact and all that. Is it